if you know anything about myself or Ding Darling, I can talk about Ding Darling all day long, and especially those white pelicans. We know it's winter when the white pelicans arrive back, right? And it was that in-between time where the hurricane impacts us, and we still hadn't seen the white pelicans, but they are back. And actually, they're not as much in the refuge currently. I'm hearing about more of them out here in Fort Myers. I think they followed you all off island.
It's green.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and so, and the water quality might play into that also. But that's what I'm here to talk about. Hurricane Ian. Next. Susan. Oh, there we go. This is what I've been doing. As a lot of you, cleaning up, assessing. We headed out the next day. We voted over every day. Next. And, you know, this is what we thought was going to happen. I was just talking to a group from Tampa. They're bringing down 150 workers. They told me they're having survivor guilt. They were supposed to get hit, if we all remember, right? It's just a matter of who's going to get it. And they are going to be coming down to help us. But that is what we thought. And when we are in the cone at all, as the federal government, we have a plan. And so because we were, and eventually, of course, right in the middle of it, luckily we do have a plan. We started having a plan since Hurricane Charlie, when we didn't have a plan before. So we learned quickly, and I've been at Ding 20 years, and through 2 major storms, you have a plan. And if you're anywhere in it, you wait until it passes you, because you never know which way it's gonna go. All right, next. So we prepared. We moved equipment off island. You can see all this equipment. Thank goodness. We took the WOW off island, our multi-million-dollar classroom that we take to schools. Because of the Ding Darling Wildlife Society, we took it off island. Thank goodness. I wish we had taken more off island, because everything that's left behind, as we all know, our golf carts, our electric cars, we lost vehicles, equipment, we lost housing, we lost offices. We'll go into that. But we have a partnership with the school district. So where they park their buses behind Walmart on 6 Mile, we have a partnership, and we were able to get in as many vehicles as we could. We put up our shutters and we left, right? We all thought we'd be returning quickly. Next. What is crazy is this is at my house, and I live off Winkler. The state park's at the end of the road. And because of that plan, everybody's accounted for. And I never thought law enforcement would actually show up because they didn't hear from me. And they did. It was like all my neighbors started running out to the truck, and I'm like, Fish and Wildlife Service. They're like, we're looking for Tony Westland, because I had it called in because we had no service. So it's amazing that plans do work, and it's important to have plans because they do show up for you. I was the closest employee living to the island. I don't live on island. But when you don't respond, they come as chariots looking for you. So, and we even account for Ding Darling Wildlife Society too. Next. But quickly, right after that, hundreds, you know, at the end of it, you know, this was the first crew. Fish and Wildlife Service as a whole has a plan. Workers were ready to be here. Law enforcement and SORT teams come first, and they help with any sort of recovering people and looking for people on island. We had them searching for people that we knew. So they went out first, and then all of the workers come. Heavy equipment officers and ladies, sawyers, so they are working with chainsaws. They sent down the next morning. We had 50 workers from Fish and Wildlife Service helping us. This is what we do in every natural disaster. If it's fire, flood, hurricane, tornado, we always have a plan, and we help each other out. And that's what makes it great, that we're a system of lands and workers all around. Next. So every day we were boating to work, right? This is what we did. That's how we got across. We made it to Tarpon Bay. Thank goodness we had an access point at Tarpon Bay. And we were able to let the city and others, SCCF, everybody accessed from our area. Then eventually we did allow some contractors to come, but for the most part, Tarpon Bay was just for city and partners, conservation partners to access. Next. Just some good pictures of us boating over with smiles on our faces. Usually going home is when we had smiles on our faces. Long days, dodging things in the water, tried not to touch the water, all of that. Next. This is what it looked like when we got to Tarpon Bay. So you can see their giant 42-passenger pontoon boat was actually on land. They lost all of their boats, bikes, kayaks. They have some kayaks left and paddle boards, so they are open now. They lost their trams. So our huge concessionaire that took care of us, it's the business part of Ding Darling, really had an impact. The building did good. That's our building on the right. And then we built the building for SCCF. It's our Marine Lab. We own that building. SCCF operates it. The building stood well. Just some, damage with a little bit of, roof damage and stuff. But for the most part, it did really well. Next. Here's the boat. Here's somewhere we lost our decking. Next. The touch tank is now gone. So that was kind of a bummer. You can see the 3 images, what it looked like first, and we did a lot of education. Before you go on the boats, you get to have a touch tank experience. And then when we showed up, there was just miscellaneous stuff in there, and now we've cleaned it up. Next. When we made it to the refuge, and it took a long time just to get the 2 miles down from Tarpon Bay to the main refuge with all of those electric poles snapped like toothpicks. I'll just never forget that image. We had heavy equipment being able to push them out of the way just to make it safe to pass the road. But we did end up then making it to the refuge. We put the flag up right away. It was inside. It was something we wanted to at least have some normalcy. Next. Just a lot of debris down. We lost our iconic ramp. Our iconic archway will have to be rebuilt. Next. And this is what Wildlife Drive looks like now. We cleaned out the booths, the fee booth or the tram booth. I have to tell you that first morning we saw a bobcat. It blended in so closely because everything's so gray and brown. It camouflaged even better. The bobcat came walking across the parking lot and we were just like, yes. Like that was the first wildlife we saw. I think I cried when I saw my first gopher tortoise. The gopher tortoises have been impacted like no other. They do float if they're given the opportunity. They kind of bob, but they don't have flippers. Remember, they've got claws. But a lot of our gopher tortoises, the burrows have just been washed over. We take and do gopher tortoise burrow surveys, and so we know where they are up by the Woodring property. There's lots of them, and along Sandcap Road, and they're marked, and we're monitoring the tortoises. And when we've gone back, a lot of them are just washed over. So obviously, with the amount of water, the time, and now and all of the animals. The gopher tortoise is an iconic species that we call it, nature's landlord because it makes the homes for the other animals. So the impact of the animals in the tortoises too is devastating, but we've seen some. There is, I'm just happy to see a few of them. So we're hoping that comes back. Next. Along the Wildlife Drive, this was an iconic platform that we built so people could bird off of the road and not have to be in every structure. I joke around with my boss, Kevin Godsey. He is actually the one that built it. And I said, oh, your platform disappeared. It went on the other side of the road, 200 yards out into the mangroves. The platform was shoved into the mangroves. That is literally, though, the only structure that busted apart. Other things have lifted. The boardwalks have lifted, that some can be repaired. But we are, what's taking so long, and that's the million-dollar question is when are we going to reopen? You'll see in a little bit, the road had a lot of damage. The boardwalks, that wonderful recycled plastic, did not hold up. It didn't hold up well during Charlie. You'll see more of that. We need to look to a better sustainable product, cement. They make cement what looks like actual boardwalk. And that is what we're looking to put in. It's expensive, but we need to look to the future because we're rebuilding after all of these storms. Next. Next. There we go. Sorry. That's just an image of it the other way. Next. Lots of iguanas everywhere, by the way.
Yeah, they survived.
Yeah, they really did. You're like, oh, here's the road. So this is really what the Wildlife Drive did in a lot of cases. So you can't have cars out there or bikers. The water undercut the road. And in some of the spots, I'm 5 feet tall. I'm like this measuring tool. I could stand in the hole next to the road. And I'm just like, oh, we need some fill. We need some riprap. Right before this though, oops, she's going the other way. Here we go. We're coming back. Right before this, we did do some renovations to the road and added some stability. Thank goodness. A lot of that was exposed. You can see the mesh they put in to hold the road. So it did actually do its job, but then you just can't with the amount of force of the water. Next. Mangrove overlook is there. It's just lifted at the end. It's about 10 feet up. You're kind of walking uphill once you could get through the debris. So that will be closed once the road opens. Our goal is to get the Wildlife Drive open so people can bike and enjoy and bird. But some of these extensions off of the road are going to have to be closed until we can make them safe for people. Next. More road. Next. Just showing how the concrete just kind of gave way. This is right by a fishing pier. Obviously, we needed to shore that up. Next. This is right by the observation tower. I was so glad to see the tower standing, but across from the tower is where the water really came in. And those open areas that did not have mangroves. We talk about how important mangroves are. They really are when it comes to wind and water and for the wildlife, but they really protect us. In these open areas where we trim so people can see, right? That's where we saw a lot of the road has washed away. There was no mangroves to take the blunt of it. Next. This is the Calusa Shell Mound Trail. It's a 1/3 of a mile around an archaeological site. You learn about the Calusa Indians along the way. This took terrible, after Charlie, we had to rebuild it, and so we just saw it again. It's almost like a roller coaster. It's like a skate park. Kids would really like this. And it's a 1/3 of a mile, and it's the whole way. So that will be closed down until we can figure out what is a better product that's going to withstand the wind, the water. Next. This is our housing. We had housing for interns. We had 7 interns on site that luckily, of course, we evacuated, and they were living in trailers. And then we have a place where RVs can go. Our volunteers bring their RVs and volunteer. And this is that area. You can see there's a miscellaneous boat in there, a couple boats. But the trailers themselves, just like any trailers in Florida, it's not permanent housing. It's what we've had for interns. We're looking forward to building bunkhouses and some sort of structures because our interns are all funded by the society, but we need for them to obviously be living in safe conditions. And we lost all of the trailers. Next. I had like parents calling me, We had them safe off island. The society put them up in hotels. Then they all had to go home. We were just starting these internships. And unfortunately, a lot of them lost their stuff. We had water went into the trailers too, which was a bummer. Next. So yeah, it just kind of looks like a wasteland. Miscellaneous stuff, just cleaning up. You guys get it. Next. This is all behind Ding Darling, our maintenance center. We lost roofs and we had people's extra roofs. Next. This is just along Sandcap Road. It was nice to see some of them standing, and I think the picture may be cropped, but that's when you just saw a lot of those snapped over like toothpicks. Next. This area was impacted even previous. If you guys are driving down Sandcap Road towards the refuge, there's an area that already looked kind of dead off to the right. And it was saltwater intrusion. It's what the saltwater was. We were already having higher tides before the hurricane, and it was starting to have an impact. We were seeing climate change. We were seeing sea level rise in parts of the refuge, and our biologists are studying it, and we're seeing the die off of some things. Now we've just seen it as in a major way. But we were seeing parts. We were actually in process of developing a sign. When people are biking down Sandcap Road, they're asking questions. They're saying, why is this stuff dying off? And we're explaining it's saltwater intrusion. Now we have saltwater intrusion, you know, everywhere. And you're seeing that. But anyway, we are seeing a lot of regrowth. And our biologists at first were saying, don't get too excited, because things sometimes burst with growth and then they die off. So we're all just kind of, this is the first time we were able to study mangroves during Hurricane Ian, what was the last one? Irma. Even Charlie, but Irma down at 10,000 Islands that got hit down there in Naples. We've been studying the mangroves there and seeing how they're recovering. It takes, you know, years and years and years. So now we're just studying it firsthand even more with all of that. Next. St. Darling Wildlife Society. So the nonprofit that supports us, they had their office space underneath our office. And it was a great thing that they were so close by. But unfortunately, and I should have put a picture in, the water got up to 6 feet because, again, I'm 5 feet tall. I stood and I was like, this is 6 feet. So unfortunately, they lost all of their office space downstairs.
Absolutely everything, all of our files, all of our records, all of our archives, absolutely everything was washed away. So we were able to take nothing, but we're putting it all back together, and that's part of the work that we're doing now, is trying to reassemble records, archives, anything we can do that direction, and hopefully be rebuilding new offices on site sometime within the next 2 years.
Elevated.
Yeah.
Good idea.
We love them right nearby. We could all work together on so many projects. So we need them close by, but we're figuring out where we can build.
We're working on a temporary office space
Yeah.
now, but it'd be nice to be back on site for sure.
So when you come and you're going up the ramp to go to the visitor center, right to the left there is where their office space was. And we needed to bulldoze this. I never thought in my 20 years at St. Darling, I'd swing a sledgehammer into wet drywall and try to pick up your friend's stuff. It was very hard, right? I mean, we all know that with your homes and things. But we had to get the air flowing because our office is wood and we were about to lose our office above. So if we didn't get the water out and get that out, we were going to lose everything ahead. And luckily, again, those workers from Fish and Wildlife Service, all of us, and then we could get heavy equipment and just push it through. Now the airflow is going and we saved the offices above. We lost our, carpet, but, things like that. Next. So you can see what it looks like. Then we had to, pile everything up, and now what it looks like. We're trying to think, how can we use this space? Well, it's going to be a really good picnic area. We've decided. We're going to put picnic benches under there. School kids can be there. People can come have picnic lunches there when we have programs. It's a great shaded spot. Shade is never anywhere in Florida much. You don't have much shade. So weird. Cross breeze. We painted the ceiling blue. And so it's looking really pretty. Next. You gotta make the best out of it.
Now, this is our store that was located near the Sanibel Bean, 2250 Periwinkle. Unfortunately, absolutely everything in there was lost. We managed to get in and pull out a couple of pairs of binoculars and the cash receipts and things, and that was all we got. The whole building was off its foundation by about 18 inches. The roof was sagging. It was just, just totally gone, so that was a huge loss. It was also, unfortunately, the reason we had it was the distribution center for our online store. So the back half was all the distribution center and the front half was retail to help pay for that distribution center. So we pulled it back to the refuge where the visitor center was intact and our store there is good. And we're operating out of there right now.
Yep. Next, you can see the foundation. I biked up to see that the whole building was 18 inches off of where it should be.
And it sags right now. If you drive by, you'll see the roof sagging in it.
Yeah. Next.
Oh,
Yeah.
these are local fishermen who obviously needed employment. And so they were wonderful guys who came along and helped us with marine debris. Something like 7 or 8 dumpsters were pulled out of all the
Tarpon
area along
Bay.
Tarpon Bay and all along the Wildlife Drive. And I mean, things that wouldn't fit in dumpsters, massive, big pieces of debris, from refrigerators to,
Mhm.
you know, car fenders to roofing to everything under the sun.
Because you think of everything that's on land, right, and you can see it because we have our buildings, but then, you know, we've all the water space. And so it was such a great partnership. These fishermen, they now have no way to earn a living because they aren't taking people out fishing in the waters. And so they bought a barge, and the society paid them, which was such a great thing. We could have never gotten a government contract that quick. And they started
Right.
pulling the stuff out of the wilderness areas and the places that, and I just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And they staged at Tarpon Bay, and then that's when we could get it away from there, so.
And the plus was because they're fishermen and they're committed to the water also, they really went over and beyond what they had to do, just look for any little thing they could pull out, and they did pull out lots and lots of
I mean,
things.
they know they need to be out there fishing later and make a living, so it was a win-win for everybody. Next, things you don't see behind the scenes. So now we have cleanups. People are like, what can we do? Every Wednesday, we have 20 people. They sign up on Eventbrite. We brought on people on Mondays. FGCU, their honors class, adopted us. And so FGCU college kids come out on Wednesdays during their class time and clean up. And just like I said, I get a random call from the Tampa Bay area where, you know, a group wants to come down and volunteer. Keep Lee County beautiful. We had 100 volunteers do the 6 miles from Tarpon Bay all the way up to the Leon Tauk tract, the Wolford area, clean the roadways. I mean, people are just reaching out. It's just hard to keep people safe and manageable, you know, and everything. And they just want to be out there doing, and we got to keep them safe. So our big motto is, you know, no trash is too small. We're trying to stay strong. You get a grabber and you get a bucket, John. That's what you got. And you walk and you pick up. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many cigarette butts. I was like, what? And then glass, all of the little microplastics, the glass, picking insulation out of a fence for like days. But all of that impacts the wildlife, and it impacts us, and trying to get people back. It's got to be safe. So we've got these cleanups. People sign up on Eventbrite, and people have been great about it. Next. We've had dignitaries come. So Shannon Estenez is the Department of Interior. She's the Assistant Secretary of Fish and Wildlife. She came down. And then on the other side, the head of Fish and Wildlife Service, Martha Williams. So 2 very strong leaders in conservation came down. You know, they came for a quick stay, which is good. They wanted to see it. They said they don't want to bother us. They just wanted to know what help do we need. So that's kind of the next discussion, which is we are hopefully getting some good federal funding. It still hasn't trickled down completely. We've been getting, you know, preliminary numbers to actually, you know, get this all cleaned up. So anyway, it's good when dignitaries show up. At least they care, right? Next.
Tougher than the insurance company.
This is true. So we have partnerships with like the Sanibel Fire, and they needed one of our trucks from Florida Panther, brush truck. You know, when electric starts going on, fires happen. We all know that. They needed a brush truck. We brought it up from Florida Panther, and now their emblem is on our truck. And we've always had a lasting partnership during prescribed fire and stuff, but it was like the least we could do. Next. And then things like, if you're not out there, we met these Operation Barbecue people.
Right,
Like, you
they were
just meet
fabulous.
people from all over the world and the country, and dogs that are saving lives and going through rubble, and just thanking them. Next. It was just trying to find the joy in all of this. Oh, this one, you can see the military, I'm going to say, is that Chinook? Am I going to say that right?
It is.
Okay. I couldn't believe, right? We kept seeing all of these. They would land in our upper parking lot. And like, oh my gosh, crazy, dropping off dumpsters, taking away hazmat dumpsters. But we were constantly, you know, working with the military. But They never really asked, they just landed everywhere, and that was okay. You're out there like trying to clean up and you're getting whipped by how powerful those things are and how they can turn them on a dime and stuff. I took a video. This is part of a video that's on Facebook, and it just comes around and they maneuver it, and it was just amazing to see someone who isn't military. It was amazing. Next. And then the rebuilding continues. So we're still cleaning up places like Woodring Point. All along the road there to the point, we've got Conservation 2020 land and the Woodring Homestead, which is, a historic place. And then just the parking lots. That is the Wildlife Drive. The third one over is the current Wildlife Drive I took on Friday. We still have mounds of fill and debris. This is why we are not open yet. But we are seeing the wildlife. I think the wildlife is really enjoying that there's no one out there. They're getting a break from the millions of people, but we can get our work done, and it's still happening. We're still working. Next. But what are we still doing? We're doing outreach events still. We're doing fishing tournaments. We were there for the Sanibel School reopening on Wednesday. There's the FGCU students up there, did a cleanup by paddle of Tarpon Bay. Just when you think, yeah, there's Susie. She's my go-to when I need help at outreach events. And so just when you think you pick stuff up and we think we have it clean, you guys know it all blows back in, or you're having to clean it up again. So it's just that constant process of cleanups and outreach. Next. And we're doing mindfulness walks. We have Ranger Jess that would love to come do mindfulness with you all or do meditation. We're doing mindfulness and meditation at the Sanibel Rec Center on Fridays and Saturdays. On Fridays, it's 30 minutes. Robin came. We're calling it a brain break, where, if you're working, you can come. If you're cleaning up and you need to just get away from the rubble, you can come. Ranger Jess she's our newest ranger, and she has a psychology degree. She's not a typical ranger, like we're usually hiring biologists, but her focus is in mindfulness and being out into nature. And she leads these experiences. And we're trying to lead them for whoever on the island, workers, residents. So that's happening and has been happening at Sanibel Rec. And it's because we just don't have a place right now to have them. And why not be an asset to the community? Go to the Sanibel Rec Center. So those are open. We're doing them for schools. There, she did it for a whole Tice Elementary. And so she's done it for other schools too. That just happens to be Tice. We're doing the cartoon contest. We're trying to keep normalcy for these contests we've always done for schools so things don't stop. Even though we need to be cleaning up, we still need to continue to be an asset to the community. So we're trying to balance all of that. Next. Here's leading it out of the rec.
It's indoors on Fridays and outdoors on Saturdays, right?
Yes, good job. Have you come yet?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. See?
Yeah.
You could ask Greg. He knows all about it. Besides this, Tarpon Bay Explorers just opened. So they have kayaks. Let's go next. Do I have oh my gosh, how do I not have, that's coming up. But anyway, Tarpon Bay Explorers opened. We're having a ribbon cutting next week officially with the chamber. But they have kayaks and stand-up paddle boards, and you can also launch your non-motorized boats there. So that's what's available. They did not lose their store, so people can support by shopping. But they did lose all of their bikes, boats, trams, all of that stuff. So they're eventually going to get back on board as they go. We have decided to do our conservation carnival. We did this last year at Lakes Park. So just doing outreach into the community. We know there's lots of people that can't get to Sanibel in our community. So we've decided to bring the refuge to them. It was free, it was fun, and we are going to continue it. It's on Earth Day. That should be the question. When is Earth Day? April 22nd, we are having at Lakes Park. So we would love for anyone to come. There's a dunk tank. You can dunk one of us. You can dunk Anne Marie. No, I haven't talked her into it yet.
Not yet.
Lots going on that day. Next. And then you can always shop online at shopdingdarling.com. And when the refuge is open again, we'll have our main store in the refuge open.
But until then, they have shipping every day. So that's the best way to support us at the moment.
Yes,
And we do know that many of you do support us, and we appreciate that.
yes. Next. Everyone received a Ding Strong sticker. We've had Ding merchandise, Ding Strong merchandise. And then lastly, next, that was just like one of those pictures that you're like, okay, I can make it through the day. We've got the rainbow there, so. Yeah, so the question is, the building survived, the visitor center is standing, our offices are good. It's just a matter of the roof is gonna have to be replaced on the visitor center. We lost solar panels, and then the AC units. You know, those are big contracts, phone, AC, that it's gonna take a while for buildings to get back going, because that's always the question. When's the visitor center opening? We just want to get the Wildlife Drive open so we can get people out there and enjoying. Because the wildlife is there, but I do think they are enjoying everything, like I said, that we are all giving them a break. Any questions?
I just have
Yeah.
a comment. You mentioned the gopher tortoises.
Yes.
And can you give us any more information on what wildlife survived and how they survived and how they're doing now and what didn't survive, like rats or whatever it is?
Yeah. So you've seen so many eagles on the island. Have you been seeing more eagles? Eagles are scavengers.
Yeah.
Like when people think of our iconic eagle, it's a scavenger.
Like an osprey.
Yes, and so you're seeing so many vultures, eagles, they are cleaning up. So the little bit, I've only seen a few turtles, snakes, it hasn't even been much, but the animals get in there and clean up so quickly. Our bird surveys, our numbers are where they're supposed to be. So
Really?
yes, which I am surprised because when I'm on the Wildlife Drive, I'm not seeing those iconic flocks. Susie's having them at her house, and I'm like, she's sending me all these pictures. You want to see the pelicans? Come to my house. I'm going to Susie's. Pelicans. Like, it's unbelievable how they've moved over here to Gulf Harbor and other places
Right.
where the water quality is better, it's greener.
Yeah, well, they see where it's brown and where it's green.
Yes.
Right, with the aerial view. Yeah.
But there's like right out front, walking up the ramp, there's a family of raccoons in that tree, right outside the visitor center. I just took pictures yesterday.
Yeah.
Walking up the ramp, I've got my hands full of everything, and all of a sudden it's greening on the strangler pig's greening. It looks so nice. And all of a sudden berries are falling on my head. And I'm like, is there birds up there? And I look, and it's a baby raccoon right above me eating all of the berries, and he's dropping, he's missing. I'm like, you're missing these good ones. Like, I'm talking to this raccoon. So we're seeing lots of raccoons. And Bergie had a video of like right after the hurricane. So we think, they hung on, and so you cannot believe what these animals must have gone through to hang on, to be able to survive, to see those bobcats, raccoons, all of that, but tons of iguanas. I mean, I was hoping with the cold snaps and stuff, we could get rid of some iguanas. That's one animal that we work hard with the city to maintain their populations low, if not gone, since they're not a native, animal. But yeah, we're seeing lots of them. So, bird surveys, we're doing them at Bunch Beach. We're doing our same surveys. Avery is our biologist. We go to Bunch Beach and do surveys. She does them along the Wildlife Drive. She does them at the Bailey Tract. And bird numbers are where they need to be. So that's good. Even though I feel like when I'm out there, I'm just not seeing what I used to see. But I'm also not doing surveys. She does them at the same time, same places. I mean, that's why we do that. You know what I mean? To do the counting. So
a lot of the foliage will die. How does that get burned in order to have regrowth, or does it just stay?
So for the mangroves, what we've seen, because they all look dead, it's just going to be back. We're going to need good water quality. We're going to need good flushing for the mangroves to regrow. We're seeing gumbo limbos are greening up, strangler figs are greening up. So we're seeing greenery. It's going to take years for mangroves to come back. And if the flow is hindered at all and it doesn't have the washing in and out. We saw that at the end of the wildlife drive after Hurricane Charlie. We had to put a whole new, it's water control structure 8. We put a whole new water control structure in just so that it could get the flow back into, and now the mangroves have come back. So with mangroves, it's all about washing and flow and ebb and, you know, the whole tide, and they'll recover. But it also needs to be clean water. There's still lots of, I know our beaches are opening, but it's still really a concern that people need to be careful with the water. We're getting updates, and we just all need to be really careful about that. And that's why possibly we're not seeing the wildlife that, you know, we're seeing in certain areas. We have bigger plans at the refuge to restore flow along the road or the Indigo Trail, where we possibly will put bridges in to restore flow so that there's better flushing in with the mangroves. So there's bigger projects in the plan that we're hoping to get hurricane funds for. In the meantime, it's just a matter of getting back open enough to have visitors come back. People are surprised we're closed. I mean, they are, because other things are open. And so we are trying to, you guys are the first to even see the impacts. I mean, we put this stuff out there, but people, if you Google Ding Darling, it says it's open. We can't get it to not say that. Our websites say it, our Facebook, all of our socials say it. Google, we have a ticket into Google to say, you need to say we're closed because everybody Googles it and it says we're open. So as soon as we can open, we will. And there's no set date of when that will happen. I know people are trying to plan vacations.
What about the Bailey Tract?
The Bailey Tract, we're heading out with 50 volunteers on Saturday from Keighley County Beautiful. We lost the bridge. If you were to bike to the Bailey Tract, there's a bridge right off Tarpon Bay Road. That was on the other side of the road. So that got blown out. We need to, you can drive in just fine.
Yeah.
We need to replace that. The kiosk has fallen over in the parking lot. Not a big deal. We lost some signage, the mindfulness trail we need to put back in. The big thing with the Bailey Tract, it's that gray, thick layer of slippery, remember that stuff?
How could we forget?
Yes. I don't even know what to call it. There needs to be a good,
Sludge.
yes, slimy hurricane sludge. I don't know. That is,
hard.
yes, that is still in there and we're having to chip away at it. And we were hoping with rain, because we have had some rain, surprisingly, it would wash away. It's just made everything worse. So the Bailey Tract is very slippery with that and just random trash that we're tackling that. Our focus is the wildlife drive first, but we were glad we've got 50 volunteers to go into the Bailey Tract this Saturday and really assess it and keep, you know, pounding at that. Our problem is we only have 7 workers and we don't have a maintenance worker. And so all these people that came to help us have gone home.
Yeah.
And we have 1 worker from another refuge with us right now that's helping, but it's really not a lot of heavy equipment operators. Yeah.
I've sometimes heard that birds, particularly, but sometimes wildlife anticipates
Yes.
when a big storm
Yes.
is coming.
Yes.
And then right before the storm hits there, the birds somehow go somewhere else.
Yes. Or they hunker down, but they
Or
leave.
they hunkered in.
Yeah.
Do you have any information on that?
We have data from Hurricane Charlie. We have nothing that's come out from this one. I remember in particular with Hurricane Charlie, we had tagged sharks from the Lowry Park Zoo up in Tampa. We were doing a study where they wanted to know how many sharks were in the area and were they using the refuge. And Mote Marine and Lowry Park Zoo tagged sharks and we were watching them. It was very cool on the computer where they had data of when sharks were coming into the refuge all the way up to the mangrove overlook. If there was a high enough tide, the sharks were utilizing the refuge. They were wanting to know where they were going. This became so important with Charlie, and we didn't even know it. 8 hours before Hurricane Charlie hit the refuge, those sharks left the area. Exactly 8 hours, and exactly 8 hours after Charlie left our area, the sharks came back. The sharks know the barometric pressure drops. This is why women have babies, right? They all of a sudden have many more births, they say at Health Park and stuff. So, yeah, crazy, right? But we had data, finally, it was the first of its kind, where it was accidental, and we were like, we're gonna have to like take some sharks and keep watching them come hurricane season. We never had that study again with them, but that was like hard evidence that they knew that, and it was like, this is very cool, we're part of a major
Anything about
study.
birds, or they just hunker down, or they go
They
somewhere?
probably leave the area. I mean, I'm guessing because the winds, birds, you know, they're light as a feather, right? With hollow bones. And so I would hope that they would need to hunker down. But the amount of force that we had, and we didn't find just dead birds. You know what I mean? Like, I think I found one dead brown pelican on the Wildlife Drive. And you would just think in such massive winds and water and the duration of it sitting on top of us, that we would have had more of that, and that just is not the case. So I can only, we don't have any birds tagged currently, that we have any hard data for that, besides we did with the sharks, and it's kind of cool, but not with the birds, yeah.
So the mangrove overlook,
Yeah.
the one would look pretty bad, but what happened to the tree crabs?
Tree crabs are back. I went out there, we had white ibis out there, and yellow crowned night herons just picking off the tree crabs. Like, things are happening. Things are back, even though it's a lot harder for them to get through the trees because they're all just kind of mangled and dead. Tree crabs are back. Tree crabs, they're a crustacean, so they burrow under the water. You know, they're down in the mud, and then they come up onto the trees and they eat the insects and they live onto the trees, but they go back down. They're a crustacean. They need to stay wet, so they were just fine. No one's ever asked about the tree crabs. I'm impressed you're asking about the tree crabs.
Sophisticated group here.
Usually it's, where did the manatees go, or the birds? The tree crabs, they were just fine.
Interesting.
I like it, yes, yeah, so they are, yeah,
They had really dropped off
yeah,
before,
yes, oh, the amount of them,
None of them.
interesting.
yeah,
And you don't see as
And-
many in the cold too, so,
yeah, but it was in last summer that
that you,
it was, for sure, there just weren't the numbers.
Okay,
out
so it
there.
wasn't just me that felt that way. I know you
Yeah.
have last year that.
and we
Right.
really are not, I'll be honest, counting tree crabs, like, it's not
Oh,
our,
come on.
you know, I know.
Hey,
We don't have tree crab surveys, but if you guys want to head up the first tree crab surveys,
Look at back then.
John is going to be the head of it.
Can we ask those that are coming in on Zoom, are there any questions you'd like to ask of Tony at this time?
While they're thinking about that,
Yeah,
what I mentioned,
yeah.
earlier you said higher tides
Mm-hmm.
before the hurricane.
Yeah.
Are you seeing higher tides there? Is water level going up? And
We-
take that into climate change. Are
Right.
you seeing any results? You've been here 20 years,
Right.
over that 20-year period of climate change and the impact in this area?
So we have one biologist. He now doesn't work for Ding. He works for the region, and he is doing mangrove research, and his PhD is on that and climate change and sea level rise, Jeremy Conrad. So we have kind of a local expert who comes around and he's measuring mangroves and the detritus and how much is sequestration is happening and all this stuff. So we were seeing just in that area we were seeing king tides, and that happens where you have these really high tides. And also when you look back, we hit a high tide during Hurricane Ian. You know, we had a high water
Yep.
at the worst time. So that really added to all of this. I mean, tides, we can check a tide schedule right now, 5 years from now, out and see what the tides are going to be doing. Like, it's pretty predictable what tides will do. But we were just seeing high tide and those king tides affecting right by along the Sandcap Road. He is not, and there's modeling with climate change and sea level rise that you can check all sorts of models. And it takes so long to be able to say this is what's happening. But if you check modeling for sea level rise on Sanibel, years to come and 99 years to come, depending on which model you want to look at, it looks like a lot of water or it looks like a little water. You know what I mean? It's that whole spaghetti strings with the hurricanes. We're all just modeling and trying to see what it's gonna look like or where we're at. We were just seeing higher tides and impacting us, but no one is saying like huge climate change and sea level rise yet. You know what I mean? It's gonna take so long. And not even SCCF that I know of, yeah. I mean, I'd have to check with them.
So just that
Yeah.
saltwater rise in that
Intrusion.
one area, saltwater
Mhm.
intrusion, that's the word. Thank you.
Yeah, saltwater intrusion and those high tides really affected that area. You're driving on Sandcap Road, the water's a lot closer right out there than you think it is. The Tarpon Bay is right there and our Commodore Creek Trail is very close.
Yeah.
So as we get those high tides, you're gonna see the die off of those mangroves, so. Interesting stuff.
One thing that
Yeah,
Tony hit on that I'm not sure everybody knows, but this is an area where all of us can really help. Over the last 10 plus years, the refuge has lost half of their staff. 10 plus years ago, they had 20 paid people working for the Ding-Darling National Wildlife Refuge. Now they have 10. And during that, and obviously their budget dropped accordingly. If you look at the refuge system nationwide, in terms of absolute dollars, the federal fiscal year 22, the budget nationwide for the refuge system, 568 refuges, was essentially the same in absolute dollars as it was 10 years ago, which means in actual spendable money, because of inflation, it dropped very significantly. Anything that you can do when you've got a few moments to spare is to write an email or drop a note to our local elected federal representatives, whether it's Byron Donalds, our congressman, or Senator Rubio or Senator Scott. And that was done right after Ian. And a number of organizations put letters in to those folks. And as Tony said, hey, it looks as though in an emergency funding bill, the money was appropriated to help the refuge. But anything you can do to encourage or convey to your elected rep that, hey, these refuges are important. The Ding-Darling Wildlife Refuge is incredibly important. Not just for the wildlife it protects, but also for the economy of this part of the country.
Right.
After our beaches, the Ding-Darling National Wildlife Refuge is the second most visited spot in all of Southwest Florida. So it's an important economic driver to Sanibel and to Southwest Florida. Think about it, guys. It doesn't take that much effort to send that kind of a note to your congressman. And maybe I'm excessively skeptical, but politicians are impacted by two things: money and voters. The more people, the more of their constituents that send that message in, the more likely they are to respond.
Mike, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike, for speaking to that. I was going to talk about it too. I think, sort of building on that, we never actually explained who these two women work for, and they don't work for the same people.
No,
And so that there's the operational functioning of DING is a federal government operation, but they don't really, historically haven't gotten a lot, and now it seems like it's less money that they get.
yes,
As you spoke, where the money to run this operation largely comes from is from the society, which is a 501c3 tax exempt
right.
organization, and they operate the shop, which does this
Yeah.
deal. They operate the online shop,
Right, endowments,
and
scholarships.
right, and
Yeah.
there are fundraisers.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I know a number of people who are Ding-Darling supporters and users and love the place. And I've never seen them at a fundraiser once, and I've been to all of the fundraisers. So one could write a check here to the society. One could take part in maybe buying a present for someone on
Absolutely.
Valentine's Day or elsewhere that's being sold by the society.
Yeah.
You drive down that road and you see the talc sign on the new 32 acre purchase that was done. Federal government didn't pay for that.
No.
A lot of that money, a lot of it was raised in one amazing night, I remember. But a lot of that money came from the society. The society has sponsored people who are employees to pay salaries of people who to work there when the federal government hasn't. So it's really key to look at this differential. You know, you can, and writing the government is great, but it might be more useful to sit down and write the check instead of, and a lot less time.